extra dance.
I felt like with what's going on in the world, we needed a little extra dance. I
Yes.
think last week we said with Dr. Collins that hard
Mhm.
times require furious dancing. And
Yes.
yeah,
And
it's
it makes sense. And we said it was an Alice Walker book,
it
right?
is. It
Yeah.
is. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
And
an
I look.
African proverb, and Alice Walker used it as a title of one of her books. Yeah.
Mhm. And I
Um,
thought that was so interesting. When I think about dancing and stretching, I think about tension releasing from your body, right? So if it's crazy times and you're dancing, I'm thinking about beating all of that from the bottom of my feet, releasing the energy. And it's kind of like Sheila said that how can you dance and not feel joy? For me, one day I realized mint is kind of like that. I was in the kitchen at Papado one day and I said, you can't be mad and smell mint at the same time, you know? So some of those things just,
oh,
yeah, push the other energy away.
I like that. I
Mhm.
like that. I mint is one of those scents for me too that
Yeah,
makes me feel happy.
yeah.
Rosemary, is good for memory, and it is also one of those, but mint definitely is a little happier.
Mhm,
Citrus too does that when you
mhm.
smell like a good lemon or lime. Oh, I
Yeah,
love that. Should
yeah, I
we
can
do
see
our
that.
intro and kick this episode off?
Yes, absolutely. Hi guys, my name is Shannon Mitchell, a Black millennial business owner. I'm the founder of Shalo Glow LLC, a handmade shea butter company. I am your champion for natural self-care and practical business systems.
Hey, y'all, I'm Christine Gotro, a white social justice advocate, an international speaker, coach, and published author, and dancing social worker who helps you upgrade yourself and community care.
Together, we are Women Connected in Wisdom, a podcast grounded in the 8 dimensions of wellness.
And we like to get together every week to have intentional conversations about how to be well in business, relationships, and life. How do we do this? How do we juggle it all?
Whew, it's a lot to juggle.
Whew,
I'm not that
right?
good of a juggler in real life. Like 9 balls is a lot. 17, I don't even know, you know?
I love that. I just had that image of me trying to juggle 17 balls, which I do often in my life, right? But the
Hmm.
reality is that's you drop balls when you're juggling that much.
Yeah.
Like,
Unless you have partnership power, maybe we don't have to juggle all of them together.
right?
Maybe we're thinking about it a certain type of way,
I
right?
love that.
Yeah.
I
And
love
that's what
that.
we talked about this past season. That's part of the 5 steps of self-care, right? From Stillpoint.
Right? 5 skills of self-care, absolutely.
Thank you.
Part number
Yeah.
3, partnership power, my favorite one. And
Hmm.
for obvious reasons, one of my
Hmm.
values is collaboration. And how do we collaborate with folks instead of compete in order for, all the when the water rises, all the boats rise. So
Hmm.
how do we do that together?
Yeah. And I think it's so important, even with just the way that we live in general. I see a lot of the competition in between. I mean, we talk about it between women, right?
Mhm.
And why is that? Where does it come from? And even though we unlearn things, how do we realize where it comes from in our life and then change to a more healthier approach? It might make somebody feel better if you, I don't know, feel like you have a one up on somebody. Oh, I showed them in this conversation, but I feel like you lose out, that person loses out from what it could have been. Now, if we're not two pieces that match together, then we're just not, two pieces of the same puzzle. But that doesn't mean that we have to be rude to each other. We could just keep going.
Right? Well, and
Yeah.
I think about like healthy competition,
Yeah.
right?
That
I
too.
mean, you think about, I mean, I always grew up playing sports and
Yeah.
on teams. And the fact that when you're doing your best, right? And when you're like trying to compete against yourself, like for your
Hmm.
better time or your, personal goal, and then that can promote like that within the whole team. And
Absolutely.
it's not that I'm better than you are or you're better than me. It's like let's be the best together. Like
Yeah.
let's do this together.
Yeah.
And it can flip easy, right? We have to be careful about that depending on
Mhm.
our personalities and how we were raised. And I was raised by a football coach in Texas. I have to watch this side of myself all the time.
I hear
And
what you're
really
saying.
really just check in, like,
Mhm.
am I being healthy with this,
Yeah,
right?
And I
Yeah.
think that's the question. I think that competition against yourself, absolutely not in an unhealthy way, but let me see if I can do better than I did last time. Um, but yeah, I do. I was in band. I'm a huge band nerd, and I didn't even think about it as competition. We're winning. That is what we're doing. We're winning. Okay. So I hear what you're saying.
Have you been seeing the memes lately on social media
I've been
about,
seeing the Usher memes. Which memes have you been seeing?
I was the what I was thinking about is these folks be talking about this heat like they've never been in band camp before.
Oh, listen, okay, and mind you, that's the heart of Shaylo glow. I was out there in band camp with those little tank tops on, and I thought my shoulder was just, I thought it was just a different color because of where the tank top fell. You're gonna have a
Hmm.
different color where the
Right?
line is, right? And it ended up being a pH imbalance of my skin. Lotion wasn't working. Started using shea butter, and the rest is history. But band camp is definitely a memory.
Right? What did you
Yes.
play?
Flute, the best instrument.
I love that.
Yes, the other instruments hate it when I say that, but I would hate to be second too, so I understand. Here comes the competitive streak.
Talking
But
about a
yes.
little healthy competition.
Mhm, mhm. Everybody's needed though, right? When you make the whole sound, all of the drums and the horns and the drum
Mhm.
major organizing it, I love it. I think about it like business systems and how do we all walk on the field and make the designs that we're making and play our part without stepping on each other's toes, without hurting one another and staying together
Right? And allowing
in
people to
step.
have some solos, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Allowing people to have some solos. Well, I
Me
know
too.
today we are doing our overview of season 8, and
Whoop
we're
whoop.
doing a little bit
8
of wrap.
seasons.
8
Yes.
seasons in episode 74. And it feels like it was a year ago that we
Mm,
started this season, but we started it off with environmental wellness with Ann Smith and Angela Weber from the Green Tent movement, which was really cool. Talking about creating communities around environmental action, which
right.
whew, needed more than ever, y'all. Like we were talking about before the show, just last week, the US
Mhm.
Supreme Court dealt a blow to climate action. And what it did, it ruled that it would limit the Environmental Protection Agency's ability to restrict greenhouse gas emissions from power plants.
Mm,
So it was actually the ruling prevents the EPA from using its authority under the Clean Air Act of 1970. So
mm,
it probably wasn't even that good of an act already. And it's saying you can't even do that, right?
mm.
Whew. I am I'm a little concerned for us right now,
Very concerned.
right?
Mhm. Very concerned. And when we talk about all these things that we see, right? The rulings that we see, the shootings that we see, the information that we get, it's like it's understandable to feel like we get really bad news every day. So then that's when I think about the first step of self-care, right? Excuse me, one of the skills, the first skill, and it's separating. Okay, what can I do to be more intentional? And then
Right.
how can I use partnership power? Maybe I need to reach out to a government official or write a letter or make a phone call. And then outside of
Mhm.
that, what do I need to put down? What's not even mine to pick up right now? And that's the only way I know to keep going. I feel like if you pick up all this stuff, again, it's a lot for any one person to carry. That's why we got to do it together.
Right.
Hmm.
And to your point, I think we do need to do it together because,
Hmm.
when we talk about environmental wellness and we talk about what is ours and what isn't, I think it's every one of us living on this
Definitely.
planet right now.
Hmm.
That if we're not paying attention to the health of the earth, y'all, the earth is going to survive. She's
Hmm.
going to shake us off her backs. Like, I mean, like,
That's a good
we're
point.
we're looking at these temperatures already. We're looking at the extreme weather. We're looking at the scientific data. Like, we got to be paying attention and making a difference here.
Hmm.
So, to your point too, like we can't all do it, but let's look at what organizations are on the ground doing this work and donate. Sierra Club is always one of the ones that's a go-to for me.
Right.
And what are ways that we can reach out to our legislatures
Right.
about climate action, and what is going on even locally? Like, Is there a tree ordinance? Is
Mm,
there, what are we doing? Like, check, I would say start out in our own communities.
I like that. And environmental wellness is one of the categories I said I feel like I can learn so much in this area. Even with the EPA, I had to look up what that is, the Environmental Protection Agency. That makes sense. That there will be one of those with the way we take care of parks and try to do reserves and different things. But to know exactly what they do is very important because if the air quality is different because they have less, control over making sure that it's safe for us and the animals, what does that mean for us? What does that mean for our food supply and things like the mermaid garden with one of our authors, Dr. Bird, that we talk about? How does it affect the ripple of everything else?
Right.
Hmm.
Right. Not to mention that, we're giving companies more autonomy than we're giving women in this country right now. So that's a little frustrating. But
Companies and guns.
right.
Hmm.
Whoo! Yeah, it really does feel like we're doing that two step and doing a little backwards right now.
Hmm.
Um, so intellectual wellness this
Yeah.
season, we talked with Michelle Manning, the sex therapist. That was such a fun show. It was titled "Stop Faking Orgasms."
Mm.
She was so fun to talk to.
Yes. And I've been thinking about just how you use your voice. Stop acting like you're okay if you're not okay, and not saying that
Right.
we can emotionally dump or anything like that on people, but hey, say what it is so that you can get
Right.
what you want. You're not going to get what you want if somebody doesn't know what's going on or um, if you don't use your voice in certain areas. So yeah, I love that
Mhm.
conversation.
Well, and you and I were talking earlier.
Mhm.
It was about a book thing. It wasn't about the podcast, but we were talking about when women connect with themselves, each other, and the world.
Mhm.
Really, nothing's impossible. And I think about this when I think about that episode and about connecting to ourselves and
Yeah.
knowing what do we need? What do we
Yeah.
want? What do we? And often I think we don't slow down enough to ask those questions. And I think it changes, like as our
Mhm.
ages change and our
Yeah.
environments change, so I think
Yeah.
that she really made me think about that, like really taking a deep breath, checking in with yourself, and also having good support systems to talk to. Like
Mhm.
if you need the therapist to talk to or a coach or a best friend, like that
Yeah.
you don't want to be ashamed of your
Mm.
sexuality, that you want to be able to have those conversations.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I would say too, like you said, the for me, that's part of why Shayla Glow is so important, right? We talk about sex and talk about marriage, all these things that we look forward to, but we talk about somebody else touching your body more than you touching your body. It doesn't have to always be orgasms. What about just how much you physically touch your body? Do you tell yourself, dang, I look good? I look really good today, or like kiss yourself on the shoulder, just a little kiss
Right.
yourself. I said that on one of these. I had an interview this past month that we were talking about women connected in wisdom and Shaylo Glow on Nishant's show with his business to business connections. And he asked me what I do in the morning. And I said, I hug my boo and I kiss myself. And I'm sure a lot of people don't say it. Like, how do you kiss yourself? Well, there's a lot of places to kiss. Can you reach them is the question. So just making sure you take care of yourself. Like we said, being connected with yourself so then you can be connected to other people. I think that it can't be talked about enough.
Right, I agree. In interplay, when I'm doing a warm up or sometimes with groups or with private clients, I always say, you rub if you need soothing, you pat if you need energy. And that
Okay.
just checking in with ourselves, right? If you
Yeah.
tap or you pat on yourself, it can give you energy. And I always
Mhm.
recommend people do their whole bodies. Like,
Mm.
and there's different studies about this too, like about our organs and the different, like the pineal gland that you can access to the top of your head, or your
Mm.
kidneys, or that when we tap on ourselves and pat ourselves, it often brings us energy and it wakes us
Yeah.
up. And it is a healthy way, right? I always think about it as grounding too, like it gets us
Mhm.
connected with ourselves.
Yeah.
Um, I know you and I were talking about before the show, like just feeling
Mhm.
a little off with everything that's going on in the world. And
Yeah.
when I get that feeling, one of the things I do is like, uh, you know, not going to be shocking to anybody that listens to us for any length of time, is, I take a deep breath and just whew, let it out with a big old sound. And the other thing I do is ground by feeling my feet on the floor or patting myself.
Mhm.
If it's shocking news or news that has been disturbing, like the last couple of
Right.
weeks has,
Yeah.
I might rub.
Yeah.
And, we think about with babies how we'll often just, if they're unsettled, we'll rub them. Well, we can do that for ourselves.
Mhm.
Dr. Cynthia Phelps, who's been one of our guests and will come back on. She's one of our authors in the Women
Whoop,
Connect and
whoop.
Wisdom book. Whoop, whoop.
Yes.
She always says, everybody suffers. It is
Mhm.
part of the human condition.
Mhm.
But that we can also have self compassion for ourselves, and we can help to soothe ourselves and emotionally regulate.
Yeah.
So I think about her often with that. I know she wasn't on this season, but
Mhm.
I think I don't know if it's next season or next. She's coming back to chat with us. I think it's
Ooh,
season 9. She's coming back to chat
yeah.
with us. Yeah.
And even before that, don't you guys have a self-forgiveness class coming up? When is that? Is that July 11th? I saw it on the community.
Oh, cool.
Let me follow up. Yeah, I think we have something
Do
coming
we?
up on self-forgiveness. I think we do.
Well, hello.
I can look at it. I don't think I have the date wrong, but just thinking about Cynthia and her work with the inner ally, I think
Right.
about that a lot. How are you talking to yourself?
Right.
And paying attention to how I nitpick at certain things, or
Right.
even how do you say it? Just are quick to say it a certain way instead of considering the whole situation. Like, well, you know what? Maybe you're tired because you worked 12 doubles out of the 20 shifts that you worked, and not
Right.
you're being lazy and you don't want to work on your business outside of your responsibilities at work.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah. Like being gentle with yourself. That's
Yeah.
a phrase I use often. Be
Mhm.
gentle with yourself. Doesn't mean
Yeah.
that you don't hold yourself accountable, but
Mhm.
look at that whole picture, right?
Yeah.
Look at that. I mean, we talk about that with the skills of self-care, of getting that broader perspective, and
Mhm.
what may be needed in the moment is gentleness and
Yeah.
kindness. I mean, I think ourselves and the world can all use more gentleness and kindness right now.
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
what are the things that we can do for ourselves and for each other?
Yeah. And for me, that's not I wanna spend a little more time there because I think that it sounds some people might think it sounds soft, right? I think that it's not a weakness to do that. I think it's definitely a strength. I think it's definitely necessary. You can't always get what you want by force. That's not the way to stay sustainable in wellness, right? We talk about maintaining our wellness, um, but also just removing yourself from the different parts of it. Why do you have to be that harsh if you're talking about yourself getting sleep? Let's talk about it. Like, why is it so hard for you to slow down when you do so
Mhm.
much in a whole week? And so that's what I try to remind myself is, oh yeah, I did actually work a lot of hours. I might not have calculated it, but my body added it up and it said that it needed to rest. So that's okay. I can still get everything done. And that's the reality of the situation. So we're still good. I try to remind
Right.
myself of that.
Right. I'm glad that you are reminding yourself of that. And also I just want to add it, if you can't get everything done, right? It's okay to set something down or ask for help for
Yeah.
the pieces that you can't, especially
Mhm.
if it's times of extreme stress. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's important. This season we also talked to Felicia Frayel about financial wellness, talking about starting nonprofits. That was a
Yes.
fun conversation.
Yeah, it
And
was.
that's going to be followed up, y'all. She wrote a chapter for the book that's coming out in September
Mm.
about financial wellness and how to start nonprofits and what some of that looks like. So
Yeah.
I'm excited about that.
And what I loved about our conversation with her was the reminder that people may love you, right? They're close friends and family will support you, but they might not be the person to support it for the next 15 years. They're going to be interested and
Right.
love you, be excited. Maybe they won't be, but make sure that you're getting different people in your network who can fill in the connections for everything you need for your company, so that you don't take things personal or have unrealistic expectations. That was a great nugget from that show.
Absolutely. That was a good one. That
Mhm.
was show number episode 69. And
Yeah.
then we had Satomura,
Mm.
who is very special to both of us because she is our audio gal who keeps
Yes.
Women Connected in Wisdom running smoothly every week and distributed to the masses. And she came and
Yes.
talked to us about spiritual wellness. That was a fun conversation.
Mhm. And I've since then started listening to the book we were talking about, and I can't remember if she mentioned it on show or before, but The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle has been really interesting in just thinking about how often does my mind do nothing? You know, if I can't fall asleep, I think about big life-size letters that say clear and you can see through it, right? And I just try to clear my mind of everything. Like I close out my tabs on my phone and and my computer, but to
Wait a
not have
second.
any what?
Wait a second. Say that again. Say it.
Okay,
Describe again what
I
you
got you.
do.
So if I can't sleep, I think about clear in huge life size, like person sized letters
Mhm.
that's actually clear, you can see through it, and it's actually on, like, a grassy hill with a nice sky behind it with the clouds, so you can see this beautiful view through it. I'm just looking at it, and I'm going to sleep. Counting sheep
Mm.
is like, no, I try to stay on the number that I'm on, it's too intentional
Right.
for me. Yeah.
Right. When I can't sleep, I put on a meditation and
Mm,
I distract myself by listening to the meditation or the person's voice. And then
mhm,
I'm usually gone.
mm.
Like it also works when Joe's talking to me at night. Sorry, Joe.
Probably works for me. Hey,
You
Joe.
know, it is though that if
Yeah.
there's a certain time of night and somebody's just talking in that voice, well, I'm out, right?
Mm.
And I'm
It's
hoping my subconscious is sometimes getting it.
yeah, and
I
I'm
would
so
love
pick
to hear our listeners if they have somebody they listen to go to sleep or what
mm.
their going to sleep tricks are,
That's a
right?
really good question. I do have
Right.
a few more tricks, yeah, but as
Oh,
far as
oh,
what I think about
tell me another one.
so if, let's say I really can't sleep, the clear is not working, right? It's still foggy or whatever it is, I will flip to the other side of the bed. So flip to where my feet usually are and reposition myself how I still do, but because it's like a new space, I'm usually able to fall asleep that way.
Yeah,
It's
so you
very
shift your
rare.
environment.
Flip it upside down.
Interesting.
Yeah.
See, I'm a proactive before I even get into bed. Like I have a
Mm,
nighttime routine, and I
mhm,
often work with my clients when they're struggling with sleep and
mm,
things like that. I'll say,
mm,
"What's your evening routine?" We talk about evening
mm,
routine and we talk about morning routines because I think they are so crucial to health and wellness. And I think they're the thing that we resist the most, or at least I do.
mm, mhm,
It's like,
mhm.
ugh. But, I have certain things that I do before I go to sleep, before I ever get to the bed that signals my body
Yeah.
that, okay, it's time to shut down. It's
What do you
time to go
do?
to sleep.
For me, it's Shalo Glow on my joints. What do you do?
Right? Well, what I do is I often get off screens by a certain time,
Mhm,
and start settling down. I like to read.
mhm,
I'm a bath person, so I
mm,
like to take a hot Epsom salt bath, and I'll read a little, and I will lower the lights. I have a don't talk to me rule. It doesn't always work in my household, but it's pretty much if it's after 10 o'clock, don't be talking to me. Like,
mm,
I'm settling down. I'm settling down my nervous system. And then sometimes I'll journal or I'll write my gratitude list. I know you
mhm.
like to do that too.
Yes,
And
yes.
yeah, and then just, I give thanks for the day. I like
Mm,
to look at my calendar for tomorrow before I even start that part of the routine. Like I
mhm,
don't like to my calendar for tomorrow to be the next thing that I'm looking at.
mhm,
Because then sometimes that gives me anxiety depending on what's on board or if I need to prep for something or things like that. But
mhm.
I like to do that before. So if there's something that needs to be done or an email that needs to be sent, I do that before I start
Yeah,
the
you're
the
like, "Oh,
wind
shoot, I
down.
need to send this," and now here we go.
Right? Not
Back
laying
and
in the
forth.
bed with that,
Yeah,
oh, there has been some nights, right, where I jump out of bed to go and write that email. I mean, I think
mhm.
that happens to everybody occasionally,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I try not for it to happen.
Yeah,
But,
and it's interesting that you talk about, routines, because that's what I've been thinking, back into a salary position now since COVID has happened, since January. And I'm thinking about discipline. It's easy to get
Mhm.
to a certain place sometimes. Sometimes it's difficult. Once you get there, you're like, I finally got here, right? How do you have the discipline to keep going? I think that's what
Right.
stops one of our self sabotaging habits that could stop us from getting where we're going a lot of times is just merely to continue on the path and the plan that you have. And this past week,
Consistency.
I haven't been as on my routine in the morning. So that's one of my goals this week is doing it at least 4 times, my time before everything else.
Well, I check in with myself when that happens, Shannon. Like, I
Mhm.
check in and say, "Am I bored?" Right?
Mm,
Am I trying to self-sabotage or am I bored? Because I might be
mm.
bored. And if I'm bored, you can change up things in your routine to give
I
it
like
some new
that.
flavor,
Am I
right?
bold?
Um, eh, or I know this one's going to be shocking for both of us, but am I overscheduled and just exhausted?
Probably,
Right?
yeah. But I like
Because
that, those 2 questions.
right. And I mean, knowing that if you are, there's things you can do to replenish your bucket, right? It could be a little extra sleep, it could be body work, it
Yeah.
could be health related. Like, what are the things? Because here's the other thing I know to be true sometimes in routine and sometimes in life.
Mhm.
When I'm overscheduled or overworked or things are really full, right? It's often that I don't need more sleep. I need something that refreshes me. And
Mm.
so that could be like a walk in the park with a friend because I may have been working so much that I haven't connected with a dear friend recently. And and listeners who've listened for any amount of time know that I like to stack things. So
Mhm.
if I have a good friend going on a walk with me out in nature in the park, ding, 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 like that refuels my bucket, right?
Mhm.
So I have that kind of list of things that really work for me.
Oh, I
Because the
like
thing
that.
I know to be true too is sometimes they don't work depending on the time of year or depending on the mood I'm in or and it's be like, okay, so what are other things that do that?
I love it. Hold on. This is why I do the podcast. This is what we would be doing on Manifestation Mondays, taking notes. Wait a minute, may change based on season. This is good
Right?
stuff. And the mood. And that's true. And I love that you say that because we were talking about values, right? And um I actually have written my mission statement based on the 8 dimensions. Took me a while to write out all these things. I said, you know what? This is a big project that I just
Right.
gave myself. But when I think about being a partner and being a best friend, being a godmom and being a manager of a multi-million dollar restaurant and an owner of two eventually seven-figure businesses. It's a lot, you know what I mean? And so I might not need more sleep. I may need to be refreshed. And one of the ways that now that I know the verbiage, right, that I see that I do that is by changing the the frequency of the category. So if I've been spending a lot of time with my partner, but I haven't seen my best friend, okay, I need some best friend time, or I need some little brother time, or just change
Mhm.
it up so that I'm hitting my different hats and things that are important in my life that I want to do, right? Especially a lot of times I talk about Sherry Riley and not spending 10% or 100% of your time on 10% of who you are. I'm really intentional about, okay, what are the other parts of you that you may not have hit in a while? But I like the idea of a refreshing list. Like we talked about a joy list with Jenna Banks, right? A refreshing list would be great. I might need to do that.
Right. Well,
Mm.
and I think we mentioned it. I can't remember when we talked about it, but
Mhm.
with the economy right now,
Yeah.
with inflation being high, I mean, this makes a difference sometimes on self-care, on things,
Mhm.
but I want our listeners, I want us,
Mhm.
each other, and I want our listeners to remember it doesn't have to cost money
Yeah.
to refresh you or renew
Yeah.
you. So I also have a list of things that don't cost money that I really like to do. So I can remind myself because sometimes I'll get in that mood. Oh, da, da,
Yeah.
da, know?
I don't want to spend money on this. Yeah. Is that what
Right?
you mean? Yeah.
Right. Or I'm choosing to spend it on something else, but I
Mhm.
need to do that. I need to
Mhm.
do something. So I have that list, which often includes a lot of nature, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So, but art also, I
Hmm.
mean, guarantee you look around your house, you've got art supplies. And
Yeah.
if not, come to my house because I'll share.
Yeah.
because there's things we can do that don't cost a ton of money that can refill us and
Yeah.
renew us, right?
I think that's a good idea to have a free side and then a side that you might want to spend money on in our list
Mhm.
that we make,
Mhm.
because yeah, even when I do have the money, I still don't have to spend it. I love a good
Right.
walk in the park. If I'm inside too long, and COVID definitely taught me that. If I'm inside too long, I need to get outside. Okay, you've got
Right.
to plant me in the sun. Yes.
I got out last night and took a walk as the sun was cooling off, and I took Monty. He was being a little bit of a terror. He's a
Mhm.
terrier, so we call him sometimes a little terror. But he needed to go on a walk, and I did
Mhm.
too. Like it was nice to walk around the neighborhood and the setting sun, and just see what's blooming.
Mhm.
See, just
It's been
I
beautiful.
I also think it's a way to connect. Like I like to walk and connect with the area that I'm in
Mhm.
and hear the sounds and use all my senses
Yeah.
because I think that's another way to get grounded and also to remind myself that I may not agree with all my neighbors and I can still be kind and love them, you
Mhm.
know.
Mhm.
So yeah. Well, episode 71, emotional and mental wellness, that was a fun one because you interviewed me about
Yes.
Stillpoint and the 5 skills of self-care. That was, we were talking earlier, somebody in an interview asked you what one of your favorite episodes was.
Mhm.
I think I'm writing down episode number 71 as one of my
Mhm.
favorites.
And still point is so important. I've really because I thought that I knew I was right. Okay? I knew I was right in thinking that when women aren't taking care of themselves, we are getting sick. Like, instead of
Mhm,
cancer being on the cause of death, it could be overworked and undernourished. That is the actual
mhm,
cause of death. So when I read about how caretakers' immune systems were compromised, how it affects you 3 years after you're done caregiving, and I'm thinking about women and men, right, who are caregiving, and okay, one person, but then there's other people after this person either gets better or we're celebrating their life, right? Because that's the
mhm,
reality of how these things go.
mhm.
So when does it stop? When is their immune system better? That's what I'm thinking. So it has to be every day, something that we're intentional about because we're literally compromised for caring so much. So it's a beautiful thing, but how do we make sure that we're taken care of?
Right?
Mhm.
And I don't know if we talked about it in that episode of my why. Did we talk about my why in that
I don't,
episode?
I don't think, I don't think so. I don't think we've talked about, no.
I know sometimes we have a plan and then we get totally
Right.
sidetracked because questions come up.
Yeah.
So, one of my whys of being a co-author with Sheila K. Collins was the story of my grandmother, of my maternal grandmother. So, my grandmother, Mahoney, she was caregiving my grandfather
Mm,
who had Alzheimer's. And this was back before they knew that Alzheimer's was they were just starting to use that word. It was not
mhm,
a common word like it is now.
mhm,
And actually on his death certificate, it said heart failure. It
mm,
didn't say Alzheimer's. And so she was caregiving him. She was working full time. She was like a trailblazer and was an accountant. And, she had raised 5 kids. She's working outside of the home. She was taking care of him. She would not put him in a nursing home because she felt like the nursing homes around her were subpar,
mhm,
and she wouldn't ask for a lot of help. I remember one time being called over for help when he had fallen and couldn't get up. And she was on this journey for 2 years as he
mhm,
declined.
mhm,
And after he passed away, she was taking one of the first community college classes. I will never forget this because, I mean, my grandmother was cutting edge. Like she's in her 70s and taking a
mhm,
computer class, right? And redoing the house and just getting her life on track. And she passed away from a brain aneurysm
mm,
that the doctor said attributed to stress, and that was from that 2 years of caregiving where she wasn't sleeping enough, where she wasn't taking care of herself,
mhm.
and wasn't really asking for help. So
Yeah.
that's a big why of why I work with clients and why I work with communities, that we talk about self-care is not selfish. Like we must have self-care in order to sustain community care.
Mhm.
Like it is.
And go ahead.
No, it's a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah, and why not? If I'm going to go and spend 10 hours at work, why not take 10 seconds to make sure that I have something to drink? And that's what I told my friend who helps different patients. And I told her, I said, okay, in between those rooms, when you're going from patient to patient, I need you to sip some water. Like, I need you to do that for me,
Right.
because everybody else is going to be okay. Their life is going to go however it goes for this Tuesday. But if you're not here, then I'm not okay. You're not okay. Let's drink some water in between, and find ways to fit, because we find time to pick up our phone and be on social media, be on Instagram. I'm interested to see how long it would say that I'm on Instagram a day. Probably less than a lot of people. Shout out to my partnership power. I have a marketing team helping me with Shea logo. But we have time for these different things.
Hmm.
So a few seconds for yourself is not a lot to spend when you have the rest of the 24 hours for everything else that
Right.
you're doing.
And I would encourage more than seconds. Absolutely.
Definitely.
But you and I were talking about before the show, we were talking about the practical ways to do that, right?
Yeah.
And that really comes down to scheduling it, y'all.
Mhm.
Like, schedule it in your calendar. Like, give yourself that morning routine, give
Mhm.
yourself the evening routine, and
Mhm.
put it in your calendar. So if somebody asks, can you do such and such? Oh, I'm already booked, right? Or schedule that walk in or schedule that doctor's appointment. I mean,
Mhm.
things that, and we can change our perspective of it. Like, it doesn't have to be dreaded exercise or the
Right.
dreaded doctor. It can be self care. It can be
Yeah.
like, yay, I get to go do this and take this time for myself. Right.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
yeah. So, episode 72 this season, we talked about social wellness with our friend Cecile Armstrong and making equity a habit.
Yes.
That was a good episode.
So good. And we talked about the difference between equity and equality, and
Hmm.
really equipping people with the tools and the resources that they need to have access to the opportunities that they need to better their um, accessibility to things like doctor's appointments or different
Hmm.
organizations, or even having the time to go to something like the green tent movement. I know we're kind of hopping around, but that was one of the things that I was so, let's just say it, I was so impressed. Christine, I met you. I said, she's spoken at the UN. I said, I don't even know where they would speak, but that's impressive. And so to be able to bring those ladies on is amazing. I was so excited for that show. So to be able to talk with Cecile about equity versus equality, and for me to have the opportunity to have a platform, to have a co-host like you and guests like that, I don't miss it any week I get to do it. So just thinking about how we play a role in helping situations for women is what I'm so excited about. And that's something that Nishat was asking me about. He said, what impact do you think that your living mentor will have? And so I told you that I said Christine Gautreau,
Aw.
because she was an international speaker, coach, and author before I met her. And I said, what impact can we not have? Women
Right.
connected? I said, I don't even know what to tell you right now. It might change his life and his family. So I'm so excited.
Well, I believe in the power of connection and the
Yes.
power of us working together. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the power of rest. So this season went a week longer than most of our seasons, y'all, because we took June 22nd off. Whoop,
For
whoop.
for
Practicing what we preached
And
for
we
my
took that off.
birthday.
Okay,
For
for
my
your birthday.
birthday.
Yes. Cannot skip that.
Right? Yeah.
Yes.
Turned 52 this year. It's a
Yeah.
weird number, but it's a cool number.
A number
And
I'm happy that you made it to.
right?
Yes.
Right? I'm not one of those people that thinks I'm going to die young. So if it
Yeah.
happens, I'm going to be surprised.
Yeah.
But I hang out with 70 and 80-year-olds. So, and they get older every year, most of them, thank
Mhm.
goodness. And
Yes.
so I like just see myself aging and getting older. And that's what I
Absolutely.
always tell younger women is hang out with older women. Like, they
Mm.
inspire you, they give you hope. They're just really cool too,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
they have stories that we need to hear. And
Mhm.
yeah, it was good. So last week, episode 73, physical wellness, we talked to my co-author, Dr. Sheila K. Collins, and we
Yes.
talked about the physicality of grief. A
Mhm.
Dancer's Reflections on the Art of Grieving.
Mhm.
Sheila's doing some powerful work with grief and loss right now.
Yes, she is. And just the fact that she uses her story. You know, we look
Mm-hmm.
at people and you never know what somebody's gone through. And we always talk about black and brown bodies. That's very important. Absolutely. You know, to be in Sheila's shoes, losing her children, is
Mm-hmm.
difficult. It doesn't matter what you
Mm-hmm.
look like, you know. So to
Mm-hmm.
be able to dance through it and hold the grief and the gratitude and dance fiercely through difficult times
Mm-hmm.
and maybe sit down if you need to sit down sometimes, you know. The story in Stillpoint about her patient that she had lost and she
Mm-hmm.
didn't realize it was her birthday. I was
Mm.
like, wow. You know, so
Right.
we really taken time to celebrate ourselves and have space for ourselves and dance through it, is what I think about when I think about Sheila.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We were we teach a class together every Tuesday morning called Radical Self and Community Care.
Yeah.
And we do it online. We've been doing it through the Let's Reimagine platform for the last 2 years. And it's been really powerful because we interplay with people all over the world.
Mm,
And we had somebody pop in this week whose daughter is has a terminal diagnosis and
mm,
needed community. And for her to have a place to land that was
mm.
embodied, and that was a group that people in that group had been through that and are still dancing and are
Yeah, that's
still,
great.
it is powerful, and
Yeah.
we always say when we close that class out on Tuesdays that, you know, the importance of self. We always, every week, we have this ritual that we do where everybody writes in the chat one thing that they commit to for self care
Mhm,
and one thing that they commit to for community care that week. And one of the things we always say is, we don't have to do it by ourselves. That yes, it's self-care, but you can have an accountability buddy, you can have a community that may be part of your self-care,
mhm.
right? So because especially here in the US, like we have this, the white dominant culture teaches us to be individualists and pull yourself up by your boots. Well, you know what, somebody made the boots.
Mhm,
Somebody made the house that you're sitting in, right?
mhm.
So that we can be interdependent. We don't have to be individualist.
Yeah, and for me, it's kind of like being in control of everything. I don't wanna control every breath of every human on the world. That's overwhelming, you know? I don't wanna be in control of everything. So, if I were to I could make the clothes from scratch and sew everything and sew the curtains and do the woodwork. I could do everything, but I would only ever be building this stuff, you know? So I love being able to use, like we keep talking about, partnership power to get stuff done.
Talking about making the clothes, I just have to
Mhm,
get a shout out. I just got back last weekend. I went up to the Lumbee homecoming
mhm,
in Pembroke, North Carolina. It's the home of the Lumbee Nation. It is one of the largest tribes in North America, I believe.
mhm,
I'll put a link in our show notes to their community, but it was their homecoming, and I was there for Cucalores Film Festival, which
mhm.
my friend down Raleigh and Kim Pevia was the executive director of. And so I went up with Dr. Blue from Reforming Arts, and we drove up there to be of support to these friends and colleagues. And
Yeah.
we went through the museum on the campus, North Carolina. I'm going to get it wrong, but it was, I think it was the University of North Carolina at Pembroke.
Okay.
And they have a museum of Eastern Native American culture on
Mhm,
the campus. And there was one of the most gorgeous quilts I have ever seen in my life. It was this pinecone pattern. So part of the Lumbee tribe, and one of their symbols is this pinecone pattern.
mhm,
And so if you ever look at the bottom of the pine cone, it's like a
mhm,
mandala or a
mhm,
spiral.
mhm,
And the one that's in the museum, it has like 26 squares where the woman who created it did this little fold and tuck of all the square. It's like a three-dimensional. I'm going to have to put a link to a picture on our
mhm,
show notes. It was stunning in
mhm,
so many ways. And I don't know if you know this about me, my friend, but I've always wanted to quilt because
mm,
my nanny, my grandmother, my paternal grandmother, Lila Ruth Nichols, was an amazing quilter. But by the time I got old enough to quilt, she was shaken. and she
Mhm.
had given up quilting. And so it's one of those things that's on my bucket list that I need to take a class. Like I have
Mhm.
this, I just need to sign up for a class somewhere. But I think about the history. I think about, well, and you also know I love me some practical art, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I think about all the people that have slept under quilts and keeping us warm, but also the art of it
Yeah,
is really magical to me.
yeah. Um, I don't know if you know this. Do you know that crochet? You know I've been in
Yes,
crocheting for over
yes.
20
I know it's
years.
one of your self care things. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. It's so quilts is usually what I make, and I usually, recently it's been for the children that are coming in the circle. One of our youngest members of Manifestation Mondays has a blanket, and um my goddaughter has a blanket, and when baby Bean, who should be here any hour now, my best friend's new baby, he will get one too closer to the winter time.
Ah, so fun,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, I love
I
doing
can't
it.
wait to see a picture of that, my friend.
Yeah, I can't wait for you to start quilting. I think you'll really like it.
Right?
Yeah.
It feels like one of those, when I'm older things, but then you
Mhm.
don't wanna wait until you're shaking, right?
That's a
So
good point.
it's like, I probably need to get on that right now.
I definitely feel like a grandma every time I make a blanket. It's still a thing.
Right,
I'm like,
right.
"Yep, I'm
But
a
all
grandma right now."
ages, like
Of
all
course.
ages do it. My
Yes.
daughter crochets and is amazing at it. I don't
Yeah.
have as much patience for crocheting or knitting, but I think part of that's because I'm left-handed. So it's hard to
Mm,
find a teacher and instructions for it. And
mm.
it just, my brain sometimes doesn't work that way.
I hear you.
Well, my friend, we had an incredible season 8.
Yes, we did.
Like, I always love these times. I always think I'm curious about what our listeners, if they like these wrap ups or not. Because for me,
Mm,
I think it's an incredible process. Like to think,
mhm.
to look back, to go forward.
Yeah.
Um, I love it. I love thinking about our guests and referencing them, and people can find them in the show notes. We'll put them in there, and just giving
Yeah.
gratitude for the voices that we've uplifted this last
Mhm,
season and the
mhm.
ones that are coming because y'all season 9 is hopping. We got
Yeah.
some really good stuff happening.
Yeah, we
Um,
do.
and just the fact that we're at episode 74.
Ooh, ooh, ooh. Yes. Still top 10% in the world. Writing a
Right?
book. When you asked me to do a podcast, I did not think about all this stuff. I didn't think about it as big. And I'm so thankful that I know that what God has for you is bigger than you think of it. But I said yes to a podcast and said yes to a whole life connected in wisdom, you know?
Every time I'm like, bust out your calendar, you're like,
Yep.
girl, I did not sign
How
up for
much more
this.
time? No. But that's the thing, if we don't plan for our time,
Mhm.
somebody else will plan it. If we do
Right?
not take care of ourselves, it's not the same. They may not take care of you. You might just
Right?
go untaken care of. So,
Right?
for me, it's been an honor, and I think it would be interesting. I want to know what the listeners think about recaps. So, if you guys have feedback, what you love, what you would love to see us do, let us know. I think it's really important because when we talk about resting and celebrating, one thing we
Yep.
wanted to focus on with this podcast and our whole platform in general was not making it feel like work. It's a lot, the situations are heavy. Sometimes the conversations can be heavy in your real life, right? When we're going deep into the different parts of life. But to stop and say, okay, what just happened? How can we process it? Have we applied what we said we would apply? Did we do what we said we would do for our wisdom in action? And then where do we need to, tighten some things up? And then we keep moving forward.
Yeah, I love that. Speaking of
Yeah.
wisdom in action, what's your
Yes.
hashtag wisdom in action for today?
Oh, today, let's see. Let me look at my notes. I will say, let's see. Hmm. I will say, and this might be a weird one. I usually do ones that are like, I don't know, but this might be a weird one, but I'm gonna say hashtag rubbing or hashtag rubbing yourself. Maybe rubbing and tapping, something like that. It might end up in a weird section. We're gonna be honest, okay? I think that's so important though. I
Yeah,
don't
that
know
hashtag could
where
take
it'll
you
go.
places you may not want to go,
Yeah,
my
maybe we don't
friend.
wanna go there. What do you say? Like,
Oh.
that's I'll say that's my highlight for the week. How about that? I can
How
see,
about
and I'll say
hashtag love your skin or
there we go.
right? Okay.
Hashtag let's say that. Hashtag love your skin. It
Right.
doesn't always have to be specifically Shaylo Glow, but I think that's really important. I think and that's what I was thinking. When I'm rubbing myself, it is usually with Shaylo Glow. So that's
Mhm.
great. I'm stacking some things, taking care of the moisture barrier, relaxing myself from the foolishness of the day, letting it all go, taking care of myself, putting the moisture back in, right? But that's gonna be my focus for the next few days. If I feel like I need some soothing, just rub on yourself. If you feel like you need some energy, tapping. Got
Tap
it.
or
I don't
pat on
think I had,
yourself. Yeah.
yeah, ever heard that
Yeah.
before. Thank you.
Ah, how
Yes.
that is wild to me. We've been hanging out this
Yes.
long,
And because I need to go to a class on Tuesday. That's why I need this financial
right?
freedom so I can come to all your classes and interplay and do all this other great stuff.
I love that. Well,
What about
my
you?
wisdom in action. My wisdom in action. I think it's going to be hashtag listen.
Mm,
I think it's going to be listening to myself and my body and what does it need in this moment. Like I'm checking in right now and I need some more water for today. I can
mm.
tell. So, but hashtag listen.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And I think that's the most important thing. We can say again, oh, I need sleep. Maybe you don't need sleep. Maybe you need to be refreshed. Oh, doesn't mean you need to go spend money, can still be free. What do you need it to look like? And really being in tune in that is something that the podcast has helped me do too.
And you may need a nap or you may need more sleep. But,
Yeah.
I think listening to ourselves, what do we really need in this moment?
Yeah.
And acknowledging that this is a tough moment we're living through, y'all.
Hmm.
And so, if you need to reach out, if you need support, if you need help, that you don't have to do it by yourself.
No,
So,
no, not at all.
well, my friend, we are coming to the end.
Season 8, season 8. It's been great. It's been great.
I love
Yes.
it.
Now we're going to the 9. I don't know what it is yet. We'll figure out a rhyme or something for it, but I'm excited to
9
continue
is right
on.
on time.
I like it. 9 right on time. Yes.
All right. It's
Okay.
always the bittersweet time when we have to say
Yes.
goodbye.
Yes. Thank you so much for listening, ladies. Thank you for being with us for 8 seasons, 74 episodes. We will see you back live next week at 5. In the meantime, be well, be wise, be whole.
See you
See you
soon.
next week.